Thank you, Dushpat. And I mean, kind of just compliment Gauri on the fact that she pretty much raised a lot of the important points, and we kind of see that every day. And happy to be here. Sorry, I wasn't there in person. I've had to travel to the UK urgently, which is why I'm doing this online. But I think before I really go back and say, kind of obviously you're right that the tax certainty is very, very important, especially from an investor standpoint. But I think there are some statistics I'd like to kind of put across so that everybody understands the magnitude of this. If you look at the gaming industry, it's been operating for the last 15 years. Uh, it has already gotten about $2.5 billion of investment for an industry that turns around and has been around for 15 years. That's quite a low investment. But having said that, that very investment of $2.5 billion that has come in from kind of investors across the world is itself in danger today. So pretty much we are staring at a situation where we will have a wipeout of that. There are about 10,000 direct jobs that the online gaming industry gives, and there are close to about over 100,000 indirect jobs that the industry, kind of turns around and provides. That's in danger. The fact is that what's really happening today, right, is that there are show cause notices. I mean, right now, if we look at what's already in the public domain, we are talking about 42 plus 21 plus 17. That's about 78,000 crores, which is way, way, way higher than even probably, kind of what the industry's ever made over the last so many years. In fact, this is just three companies that I counted, and these are all publicly stated figures. You add to the others, I mean, we are yet to get one. I'm sure we'll get one. The others will get one. So you are looking at over 200,000 crores of GST demands for an industry probably, on best estimate basis numbers, has over the last I think about, even if I were to take the last 7 years or so, has probably earned revenues of not more than a max of 20,000 crores, right? So you're talking about close to 1,000 companies, earning about 20,000 crores over the last 7 years, which means you're talking about really 2,000 crores a year as an average. Over 1,000, you look at the numbers, you'll see. But the demand is like 200,000 crores. So clearly, I mean, it's a major issue. And this is after the fact that our prime minister himself has turned around and said that the AVCG sector is important. It adds into the $1 billion economy, and gaming is going to be a significant part of it. So an industry which can turn around and grow, contribute significantly, is in a way being butchered by the GST people. I also have to say, and these are just some backgrounds that I'm going to put before I give the before I get into the detail, is that I think the government did very well in getting clarity into the direct tax. I think, the mighty kind of turning around and coming up with regulations, the online gaming rules. I mean, all of that were fantastic steps in the right direction. We were surprised at really the GST Council deciding taxation, or rather GST, at the full rake value, which eventually they kind of agreed to deposit, which I think was still a positive sign. And we thought problems are over till we get this, the retrospective tax ghost comes back. And I think that's really one big issue that I'd like to talk about. Here is a situation where this industry has continued to do business in the same manner that it has ever since, right? And now, suddenly, after so many years, despite the law being very clear, despite the fact that kind of it is out there that GST is payable only on what you turn around and provide a service, and it's very important in terms of the legal concept and the legal aspect that the tax can only be paid on something you supply or you sell, right? And the fact is that there has to be a nexus. I mean, it's a very, very straightforward principle of tax law that unless there is a nexus, there cannot be a tax. So therefore, for example, today I am sitting and actually selling tomatoes. Can you come and tax me on a car that I own, even though I may have sold it or I may have junked it, whatever? You can't do that. But that's what these guys are doing. So what should have been the tax, the GST on the GGR, which is what we've been paid at 18%, all this while, is now suddenly being demanded from a retrospective effect, that too for the last 5 years, in terms of 28% on the full value. Now, let me give you a number there also. Essentially, what's happening is the revenues of the companies is, say, 20,000 crores over 7 years. The tax demand is 200,000 crores, right? Now the thing is that I haven't even earned that. How do you turn around and expect us to turn around and pay this? Which means that this is nothing else but everybody's going to go to bankruptcy. Now you go to bankruptcy, you're shutting the industry down, and like we talked about what's going to happen there. So clearly, kind of putting or taking an argument, which is what the government is doing, and I'd kind of dwell into that also. What is the government now or the department now saying? They are saying that essentially you are nothing else but gambling and betting. And even, when you are doing a game of skill, because there is this debate on the game of skill, game of chance, which although I don't see as a debate, but has been out there since 1957 when Chamar Bagwala judgment came out. So there is a plethora of judgments by the Supreme Court. They have held games of skill to be protected under Article 191G, very different from gambling betting. And therefore, kind of there is no lack of clarity between what's a game of skill, what's a game of chance. But even then, the GST department then turns around and comes and says, no, it doesn't matter. And we may have continued to take the same tax at 18% over so many years. Sorry, we didn't wake up because we were just sitting in our deep slumber. But now we'll wake up and start asking you for tax for the last 5 years. And by the way, it doesn't matter also that the same law also prevailed at the service tax time. So even that percentage and how it was being charged in the service tax was the same. So GST is just kind of a new law which is supposed to have imbibed everything from there. And then you have that law for 5 years. So you implemented that law in 2017. We're sitting in 2023. Now suddenly 5 years later, when the whole and we've been filing our tax returns, we've been filing our kind of entire GST returns, all of that. You don't do anything on it, and suddenly 6 years later you come back and say I'm going to charge you all of this. Why? Because you're gambling and betting. Why? Because there is money involved. Now, if that be the case, that there's money involved, is IPL gambling today? I mean, there's money involved there, right? Two players sit and play chess, money's involved there. World Cup involves money. Shut everything down, shut BCCI down. BCCI itself is then, in a way, a gambling company. Please charge them as well. So clearly, a huge, kind of problem. So from where we were going in a very good direction, I think we are down to a point where this whole GST tax regime is going to turn around and really, become a huge issue. Now, the fundamental principle is very simple. They are saying that game of skill, game of chance doesn't matter. Whatever it is, as long as there's money involved, you'll be treated as gambling, betting. And in fact, they've also turned around and amended the law to say what is going forward, because they turned around and said, 18% on GGR is too low. That is not the share, or that's not the share of the pie that we want, and therefore we would want higher, and therefore they amend the law. Yet at the same time, the show cause notice comes on the basis saying that was the law, and what has happened now is just a clarification. How can a clarification and amendment be the same thing? I'm yet to understand that. I mean, for me, it's very difficult to fathom that clarification and amendment is the same thing. I mean, maybe I studied a different law, but yeah, I guess, or maybe all of us did. So that's really where it is now. The repercussion of that is one. The other thing is, to then take it into the court, and for it to be, despite the court in Karnataka turning around and holding it differently, they challenged the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, there's a stay. The matter is going to come up on 10th. Can't talk much about it given that it's sub judice. But having said that, the stand of the government is very crazy, or the department, for the reasons I stated. One, the same law has continued. Therefore, there is no change. You amend a law to say going forward, this is what will happen, but you then try and charge me on the basis of the new law saying that it's already enforced or it has already been enforced. Three, you turn around and don't see any economic rationale, and you want to charge companies which are turning around and going to be bankrupt because you are asking them for paying even beyond their revenue. Four, and that's another part to be thought about, saying that you are turning around and looking at an industry which is a growing industry. If I have my numbers and estimates correct, see, in the next year, they will probably get close to. So last year, not the year that ended 23, but the previous year, they got about 2,800 crores of GST. Now, that number this year, last year would have gone up, but this year is expected to touch, especially with the changes in the law, is expected to touch about 7, 8,000 crores, and it keeps going up. What you want to do is you want to kill a goose that is going to keep giving you tax earnings in the future by saying just slaughter them now and take. And the fact is, they won't even probably collect more than 2, 3,000, 4,000 crores, even if this law is upheld in a way, or kind of the Supreme Court decides to go with the department. So clearly, kind of there is complete lack of understanding and a lack of what I would say is, economic or legal rationale here. So that's where the industry is. And I think it's important that we understand that if India has to turn around and be a growing sector, especially in the ABCG and the online gaming, it needs to be working on policies and the laws which are turning around and going to be forward looking as trying to do a retrospective. I mean, Gauri mentioned about Vodafone. I mean, exactly the same thing, right? You go through the retrospective. How can you do that? It's very crazy. So that's really where we are. That's really where the gaming industry is. I think, kind of the future is yet to be seen. There will be challenges. Everybody's in the court. Pretty much, it's like, as they said, Diwali dhamaka. So this is like the biggest court dhamaka that can happen. I think this is the largest tax litigation in the history of the country. There has never been a larger number on the table ever. So I'll stop there and maybe, kind of for Abhishek and the others to add.